If you've been given a vision, it is actually your responsibility. And you do have a unique voice within that is the perfect superpower. It is your perfect liberation tool to bring that into fruition.
Welcome to Women's Thrive Podcast. This is where you'll get to hear incredible stories of female entrepreneurs, business owners, women from all walks of life. Myself, Raymond Jan, and my co-host Abigail will be interviewing incredible women, hearing inspiring stories of women from all around the world. I have no doubt that you will find something that will be life-changing for you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join us for our future episodes.
Hello and welcome to today's podcast. My name is Ramonda Jan and I will be your host for today's podcast episode with my lovely guest, Daisy Lopez. Hi, Daisy. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here. How are you?
I'm great. Well, today we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is relating to our voice. And today's episode is about how to turn your voice into a global movement. Both things that I'm very passionate about. And without the intention of what this podcast is going to be about, actually, as soon as me and Daisy got onto this call today, we just started conversation about that. So we should have been already recording the pre-conversation
I
for
know.
this podcast because it was juicy.
I know.
Daisy, I know you're super passionate about this topic. Are you excited to dive into this topic?
I am so excited. And I think just with everything going on in the world and really how we've all evolved as women, it's such a pertinent topic. I talk a lot with my clients and on my social medias about how we think that the silencing of women's voices was a historical thing in the past, with even here in America, our fight to even have the right to vote. But the silencing of women and our voices and our true power is still very much alive and well today. So any opportunity that I get to come on and have this conversation, especially with a powerhouse like yourself, it's such a blessing. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know our audience are very much can relate to this topic as well as feel passionate about it because, as you said, the silencing of women's voices and just what's going on in the world right now is just an attempt of really keeping women down and silent. So today's episode of how to turn your voice into a global movement is more important than ever before. And I hope our audience stick with us. So my guest today is Daisy Lopez, who is a vocal activation guide and marketing consultant that helps entrepreneurs grow their brand into a global movement by activating their voice, crafting a global brand message, and creating innovative marketing strategies that expands their impact and reach. And she's the founder of the Liberated Latina. I love this brand. A brand that has become known for its innovative approach to marketing that helps entrepreneurs grow their brands into global movements. And I know, Daisy, you have a phenomenal story, where you have come from, things that you have overcome, and why this is such a personal topic and based on your own experiences. So tell me a little bit more about your background, where you're based, and just why this is a very important subject to you.
Absolutely. So I am a first generation Cuban American, Miami born and raised. Anybody listening from the 305, what's up? And yeah, this is an incredibly personal topic. And I always say I am not a mouthpiece of this work and about finding your voice because I've always been this extroverted person that's been connected to my voice. I very much was not. And I actually lived a majority of my life feeling quite invisible and honestly wanting to stay that way. And all the while, I had this inner angst as a little girl that I knew I wanted to do something big. I would practice my autograph, super embarrassing, but I would practice my autograph when I was a little girl because inside, I think there was a yearning for me to want to do something big, but at the same time, very much believing in a lot of just the conditioning of being a little girl, having two older brothers that I absolutely adore. But there was a lot of kind of cultural conditioning around being a little girl and not spoken unless spoken to. There's a statement in Spanish that translates to you look prettier when you're quiet, and it's been told to little girls generation to generation. So there was a lot just around not wanting to be seen, feeling unsafe to be seen. And it's really been quite the journey to unwind and untether while also staying incredibly connected to where I've come from and honoring my family. and understanding what it really means to be rooted in your voice and being able to use it and be a mouthpiece to a greater movement that leaves the world better than how we found it.
Wow. Just repeat that statement that girls have been told in your culture.
Yeah, so in Spanish, it's calladita te ves más bonita, and it basically translates to you look prettier when you're quiet. You look prettier when yeah, as you're quiet. And in some contexts, it's told in the form of like, you're not going to find a man if you're so like outspoken and like they don't like that. Or I remember even in school, in like middle school, which I know it's kind of like a weird stage anyway as little kids growing up, but it's also kind of told among students to girls like, hey, you look prettier when you're quiet, shut up. And it's just, it's crazy to say that out loud, but it's so true. And the more that it's told, it becomes more normalized. And now I have two little nieces, and I just couldn't imagine even saying that to them playing around. So I think we have to take those things seriously, what we tell little girls and what we tell even the women around us.
How some of your life experiences and this conditioning has shaped your ability to advocate for yourself and maybe for the movement that you're looking to create in the world?
I had so much pain inside growing up, feeling like using my voice was a burden and that me speaking up in any way was not something that could add value to a space, to a relationship, but that actually was just a burden to other people. And so coming out of that, and I was actually in the corporate space for a number of years, and my first liberation moment was when I decided to leave that job and to fully honor the voice inside my head. And that was kind of like my first experience with, oh, I actually do have a voice within, and it's actually correct, and it's actually valuable. And that was my first liberation moment of like, oh, yeah, that happens. But leading up to that, I honestly didn't, I believed everybody else's voice outside myself instead of my own. And I just remember the pain that brought, the confusion, the almost like desperation of like, this isn't the life that I want to live, but I feel like I have to live it and listen to everyone's voice instead of my own. So that's really the passion that I bring to this is empowering women from all backgrounds. Even the Liberated Latina doesn't just relate to Latinas, because I know you listening to this, if you've been called to this, you've also felt that inner pain of being disconnected from your voice, no matter what your background is. And I just want to let you know that I know what that feels like to have that pain within, to want to be that woman express that you see in your head. You have a message, you have a story, you're here to steward a big work and a big message in this world, but saying, I can't do that. I've never been that person. I've never been the woman express. But if you have that inclination and if you've been given a vision, it is actually your responsibility. And you do have a unique voice within that is the perfect superpower. It is your perfect liberation tool to bring that into fruition.
Mm. Wow, that message right there. This is so important. So, so important because I know being one of those women myself in my mid 20s was struggling with my voice, struggling with speaking up, struggling to use my voice as a tool. I know what it feels like. It feels like you're being torn to pieces when you know you have big mission, big work in this world to be done, yet you can't get your words out. I felt the same thing, just couldn't get my words out. And I just couldn't use it. I wasn't able to. What helped you become liberated and own that part of yourself more?
What absolutely changed my life, because I always wanted to find my voice, right? We hear that a lot. It's like a very Pinterest worthy statement of find your voice, own your voice. But I was always haunted by the question of, but how do I do that when I have just lived 25 years feeling so disconnected from it? I've tried to be everything else that everyone wanted me to be. So, how can I even begin to understand what my voice is and what my authenticity is? That's another very common word, right? We all say be authentic, but when you've lived life so disconnected from that and just trying to fit in and assimilate, you don't even know where to begin with that. Where do I begin and the world ends? So, what absolutely changed my life was when I started doing somatic work. Somatic work is essentially body-based work. And the reason that was so transformative for me is because it allowed me to not be so logical and cerebral. And I know so many of my ladies are like this. We go into the journal, we try to figure out what our voice is. It's all neck up, right? It's all in the head. But the truth is that owning your voice isn't something you do cerebrally or logically. It's something that you have to experience viscerally. And what I mean by that is, as I was doing these different somatic practices, my body was actually showing me moments of my childhood where I made a decision. I was a little girl and I was in these painful memories, and I made a decision. My voice is not important. My voice is a burden. Yeah, I don't have a powerful voice. It's not important. And my body started reenacting that belief every single day from then on. So during these different somatic releases, I was able to actually process that stuck emotion that little Daisy just couldn't handle. She didn't have the tools to handle. What I found underneath that was who I actually was. And I can't those of you that have had a spiritual encounter, or you've had those moments where you're like, I can't even put into words for you because you have to feel it. That's the process of owning your voice. You feel yourself for the first time, your essence, that energy of you as a little girl, just in her expression, in her passion. And once you feel that, you can't unfeel it. And that's what it feels like to be fully embodied in your voice. Because wherever you go, your voice goes with you. So it's not something that you necessarily have to find. You already have it. It's just about experiencing it so that you always can carry it with you into any space that you walk into.
Oh my God, it feels so real and so powerful. And I think for people who have struggled, and I've met so many people who struggled with their voices for because of social conditioning, because of trauma, because of experiences in their lives. And as you say, even if you want to be from your heart to heart, authentic and connected, it just isn't as so straightforward as it comes across. And that shift, I definitely felt that. It's definitely liberation and empowerment. And it's something like something just breaks inside of you. And I love that you kind of referred back to your childhood because as children, we are not really conditioned yet. And we are true authentic selves, the happiness, the joy, the freedom. And that is our truth. So only later on in life, when we go through life experiences, that starts to chip away and change us, right?
Yeah. And then it's like a friend that you lose contact with, right? The distance grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you don't even know that person anymore. And that's what I believe happens with ourselves and our voices is that we start getting all these other voices in our head that we have to be this, you have to be that, you have to present yourself this way, you have to talk this way. You can't be that. Don't you dare be that, right? So then we break that off, and then the separation just becomes more and more and more. And then one day we wake up and we realize I don't even know who I am anymore.
This is so much. I feel the pain of people who are still going through it because I think there's a lot, especially young people who may have not had that moment of breakthrough, that liberation moment, and now just trying to fit in and they can't find a voice. How important do you think, not only for entrepreneurs, but those everybody really, to have a voice and have that experience that their voice really matters right now?
I love this question because where we are right now in 2025 when we're recording this and where I see us going as a collective moving forward is there's so many different advances that are advances on the surface, but that actually are stripping our voices more and more. I know in marketing, right? There's a lot of talk around AI, and now you don't even have to really express yourself. There's something that it can express for you. And there's so many different ways where, although, yes, I know that it's such an incredible tool, we have to be really careful with where we're going as a society because we're really stripping humanity. And right now, if you feel disconnected from your voice, I want to first say you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. Actually, I want you to have so much reverence for yourself because likely, and this was so hard for me to feel, so hear me when I say I get it, and this was so hard for me to accept, but that defense of feeling disconnected from your voice was really smart because you were in situations that did not feel safe. You were in situations where you likely felt shamed and wronged. So good on you that your body came up with this defense to protect you. But what protects you as a little kid will then come back and likely stall you as an adult. So now you're in a perfect position at whatever age you're at. But if you have that awareness of, wow, I'm really disconnected from my voice, and you don't want it to be that way, that causes that angst and that frustration you feel, you are on the tipping point, my friend. You are on the tipping point of the most beautiful awareness and breakthrough of your life. And if you want to talk about revolutionary, owning your voice at a time like this, and if you're feeling called to do that, even if you're like, but Daisy, I don't know how, we'll get to the how. But just the fact that you're deciding to do that right now, girl, you deserve all the applause. That is revolutionary. And right now, what everyone's trying to go robotic and everyone's trying to numb out and everybody's trying to be like everyone else, you deciding I'm going to stand 10 toes down and be who I fully am. You are part of the called few, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, you're leading change. You're
Yeah.
leading change in your family and your community. And if you're, especially if you're a business owner, girl, rise up. This is a
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. The society and politics will have you thinking that your voice is not important right now.
Mhm.
How important is it to stand up right now and speak and advocate for things that matters to us?
It's the only way things change. That's what it all boils down to. The only way that things change is if we speak up. And this is what I always say to my clients, and it might be a hot take, but I really do believe this because I've seen it occur, especially with the work that I've done with myself, with mentors, with clients. Your voice is an incredible tool, and it's also a responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's what we forget, right? Once we decide to own our voices, it is a responsibility to steward, just like we're taught to manage wealth, money, right? A lot of money is great. It's a responsibility. You have to know what to do or do with it, how to steward it, how to give, how to invest, right? You have to, that's something that you have to learn. Deciding to own your voice is also a responsibility. And we have to know and learn and step into bravery into how we want to use it to create more change and to create more awareness and to create more unity. That's my calling. I'm called to use my voice to create more unity and to bring more people to the table so that we can actually get things done. That's what we want to do, right? Nothing changes if we just say, I'm out and I'm just going to stick this out. You have to figure out what are you being called to lead right now? What change are you being called to lead? And your voice is your responsibility to use in those situations.
Yeah. So you talk about creating global movements and creating global impact as entrepreneurs, as a brand. Tell me more about that and how can people utilize just what they have into creating a global movement that they want?
This is one of my favorite things to talk about because I will often say a lot of people will start businesses, but very few will lead movements. That's a special answer that you give in your heart when you raise your hand to lead a greater movement of change. And when I say global movements, we have global reach through these things right here, right? We carry around these phones and these devices that have access to global audiences. So if you're sitting here thinking, well, Daisy, I only have 200 people on my Instagram, or I only have an email list of whatever number, I don't care because when you open these global platforms and you decide to speak your message, you don't know where that can go. That has global access, my friend. So when we talk about growing a global movement, it's really about number one, like we've been talking about, making the decision to own your voice fully. I'm not talking about like the fluff, like owning your voice, faking it till you make it. No, roots down, knowing who you are, knowing your voice and then showing up in how you communicate and how you message to speak a message of greater collective change and unity. Growing a, let's say, social media following is going to feel very me based. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm wearing. This is how great I am. Leading a movement is starting that we conversation. What change are you stewarding in that community? Where are we going? Where are you leading us? What's the new destination? And then you use your voice in a way that mobilizes people behind a central mission that's going to outlast you even after we're gone, which is what's really special to me, having a body of work that my children, my grandchildren can still see making impact after I'm gone.
Leaving a legacy and leaving something beyond you. Like for us, it's publishing authors and publishing their books and their stories that will
Mhm.
long outlast what we've created, right? Or what we're
Yeah.
doing right now in this moment in time. And it's just so important to say it's beyond surface. Look, when you started to speak about it doesn't matter how many people you have in your current community or your audience. I remember when I had no audience at all. I started at zero. I mean, we all
Yeah.
start at zero. And now people are kind of impressed with what we're doing, the global movement, the platform we have. I'm like, yeah, it starts somewhere. So don't think that any big movement that is big today started big. No, it all starts as a seed of an idea. And you just have to stay true to it. And when I think about it, the more I grew as an entrepreneur, the more confidence I had, the more impact I started to make, the more that started to affect people. Like, okay, for the first 4 months, I didn't even show my face on my Instagram. I had nearly 10,000 followers. And I was like, okay, maybe it's time to show up my face. Genuinely, the first 10,000 followers, they didn't know who the owner was or who the person was because I was like, it's not about me. It was about the message. It was about the movement. So I didn't want it to be about me. But with that, many who part of our community know my story that I also lost my voice, that I struggled to vocalize myself physically and emotionally, and struggled to do the very things that we're talking about today, to be the advocate for my mission. So it only started to grow in confidence and strength the more I started to do it. So I didn't start, I knew I had to do something and I knew I was destined to do something that would impact people, but I didn't know how and I didn't have the tools. So as you said, just knowing that you're destined for something and you're seeing, you feel that commitment to do something is the first step towards that action. You don't know where it's going to lead you. I would be here all day if I had to just list all the things and opportunities that just speaking up and using my voice has led me to. But
Yeah.
it's so important that we take that first step because this is where it all begins and you will grow with it.
Absolutely. And what I hear you say, and it's actually so true, and it's maybe contrary to what people think, but once you really lock into your voice, then you free up so much energy to think beyond yourself. Because if you think about it, when we're so uncertain, then we can't fully lend ourselves to the greater mission because we have so many other voices in our head. We get easily confused. I'm speaking from experience, girl. I'm the first one to raise my hand. I was so self-obsessed of how I looked and how I sounded. And oh my gosh, I tripped up my word. And I sometimes I'm like speaking and I think of the word in Spanish and I can't think of the word in English. So I just look like I can't speak. That would happen to me so many times when I was on live, and I would take myself out of it feeling so just defeated. And it was so much about me. But what the beauty of actually leaning into your voice and having that body connection, that visceral connection to your expression, is you no longer have to think about that. It's that liberation of, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I can actually fully lend my full mind, body, and soul to this movement. And the stages that open up for you, you have no idea. Once you can actually lend yourself to that, you will no longer be afraid of those opportunities. You may get nervous because my palms still get sweaty. Right. I'm gonna just share. Right before we started recording, Ramonda was like, I still get nervous. But you know what? She's here and look at all the work that she's doing because she's able to lend herself to that greater movement of change. So it's not about perfection. I want to cast out any of those doubts about you have to be perfect. You have to be super extroverted. You have to be X, Y, and Z. Nah, girl. Actually, all you have to do is be fully surrendered to who you were created to be. And once you do, you start taking those next steps And like I said, the doors and the stages that open for you, you have no idea. And you're going to be able to walk on and just be that full mouthpiece for this change that you're called to lead. And in your families too. If you're not even an entrepreneur, you walk into your family, you walk into your relationships, and you have the power to create change through this technology right here. So this
Exactly.
is still super relevant to you as well.
Wow, you make me cry.
Girl.
Really, because it's so true. Because that's what stops so many of us in our tracks, the perfection, the overthinking. Am I making sense? As Daisy said, just lock into your mission and your purpose. That will drive you. And I remember when I truly made that commitment to my mission, those fears started to shift away because the purpose of why I was doing what I was doing has become so significant that whenever I spoke from my entire essence, from my entire belief system, and when you start to speak into something that you truly passionate about, you believe and you speaking from your experience, from pain and purpose, look, you won't be able to be shut up.
Yes.
And it will
Side
mean so
effect. You won't
much.
be able to shut up.
No, you won't. And it will mean so much more. That's why I'm crying because I've been through all of those motions and I can relate and I feel it so deeply because I know that's what it took for me to liberate myself and become empowered. And you have the power and the opportunity to change so many lives. I promise you, when you lock into your voice, that global movement that you're dreaming about, it's not just going to be on the surface, it's going to be real. It's going to be so deeply connected and just one life at a time. You will be starting to create a movement and impact people in ways that you never even imagined possible.
Amen. And the how will reveal itself. The first step, what if I were to tell you this? What if I were to tell you that the first step is not even to go out and do something? It's that full surrenderance of you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all together. Notice today we let our emotions show. We cry. We show up as our full authentic selves. We don't have to have it all together. And it's so important that we start talking about what is it actually going to take for all of us to surrender those old conditionings that women have to look a certain way, be perfect, show up a certain way. You have to have all the right skills and this and that all will come because when you start vocalizing what you see in your mind's eye, what you have in your heart, when that can come through your voice and your mouth, people will mobilize, things will appear. You will create that reality through what you are vocalizing through your voice. And that's the power of your voice because without it, it will always just stay up here in your mind. And that's the biggest danger for women, especially like us, that we have a story, a book you want to write, you want to lead and you want to help. Your voice is the one and only way that full change will be able to happen. If not, it's always just going to become a really nice dream that you see when you close your eyes and never something that you see when you open them in the morning.
Wow. Daisy, I'm very excited because this is not the last time we're seeing you on the Women Thrive platform, and you will be a speaker at the Women Thrive Summit this March. Tell us more about your talk coming up.
I am so excited for this summit, and I highly encourage any of you that are listening right now, if you haven't yet registered, go ahead and register for this event because, especially in a time such as this, having an event where all women are coming together and having these powerful conversations and coming together to steward these different elements of change. Hello. That is exactly against what the whole world is trying to do right now. So be part of that revolution and be part of the conversation. But specifically for my talk, I am so excited to go deeper into this and actually share more about what is that actual process. If you're still like, okay, Daisy, I understand what you're saying, but how? What are the actual things that I can do to start feeling that visceral connection to my voice? We're going to go into that in the talk, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that process of lending it to a greater movement of change through your marketing. So definitely be part of the conversation. And if you know anything about how I lead, it's going to be experiential. You're not just going to be listening, you're going to be actually shaking chains loose off of your throat. So I would highly recommend that you are in there and you join the conversation.
Amazing. Daisy, thank you so much. How can people connect with you?
I am most active on Instagram. I don't know if that's like still happening nowadays, but I love my Instagram. So go ahead and follow me at the Liberated Latina. And in there, you can send me a quick message. Just message me Women Thrive, and I will go ahead and send you a 10-minute vocal activation practice. So you can start actually doing the thing. I use this before I actually do it before I podcast, I do it before I speak. And it helps you start creating that deep rooted connection to your voice and your expression so that you can use any sort of nerves or any anxious energy, but really use it as fuel to better communicate the message that you're here to communicate.
Amazing. Daisy, thank you so much. This was an amazing podcast that I hope will support and inspire many others to activate their voice and really step into their power and purpose to create global movements with their voice. Super passionate about what you're sharing, and I hope many of our audience will tap into the Women Thrive Summit in March. Make sure you save your spot at womenthrivesummit.com. And of course, all the information that Daisy just shared, how to connect with her on Instagram, will be available in the show notes below. Make sure you share this episode with others. And of course, drop a message to Daisy. Just one more time, repeat your Instagram handle one more time.
At the Liberated Latina.
Amazing. Daisy, this was such a joy to have you here for our podcast today, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you for tuning in to Women Thrive podcast. If you found today's episode empowering and inspiring, be sure to subscribe and follow us. Better yet, leave a review and share it with others. We're committed to bringing you more stories that will empower and inspire you on your own journey. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep pursuing your dreams.